basta may numbers naman tayo.
So, wala naman tayong pinasa kahapon. So,
Wala naman delikado.
I think it's more of a PR issue na hindi talaga tama na mag-roll call tayo. Puta 230 tapos walang tao. Diba? Although may justify naman kasi nasa taas talaga.
Tsaka may tao naman tayo kahapon. Worst comes to worst. May tao tayo.
Yung pagdadala pa sa pleno. May entry na ng body. The president, other agencies lang. Hindi pa nasasabi. They can do that before the copy yan.
Walang prayer, no? Walang prayer? Wala naman prayer. Pare, tawagin kita prayer, ha?
Sino direct boss na presidente?
The session is now called to order. May we request everyone to please rise for the singing of the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisingil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw, may nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilig. Lupa ng araw ng walang aming pagsikta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mamapit, at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
May we request everyone to kindly remain standing for a minute of silent prayer and meditation. Majority Leader.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we defer the roll call.
There is a motion to defer the calling of the roll. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Likewise, Mr. Speaker, I move that we defer the approval of the journal.
There is a motion. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up reference of business and bills on first reading.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General is directed to read the bills and resolutions on first reading for referral to the appropriate committees.
Reference of business bills on first reading. House Bill 2938, establishing the forest land boundary of the province of Mountain Province, Representative Dalo.
Natural Resources.
House Bill numbers 2939, 2940, 2968, 2979, 2980, and 3004, converting certain roads into national roads. Representative Salimbangon, Ermita Buhain, Bravo, and Castelo.
Public Works.
House Bill number 2941, requiring license and clearance from Professional Regulation Commission, Representative Castelo.
Civil Service.
House Bill 2942, amending certain sections of Presidential Decree 910, Representative Castelo.
Energy.
House Bill number 2943, regulating the oil industry, Representative Castelo.
Energy.
House Bill number 2944, prescribing motor vehicle safety standards, Representative Castelo.
Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 2945, mandating all food establishments and other similar businesses to donate to charitable institutions, Representative Castelo.
Trade and Industry.
House Bill 2946, authorizing the utilization of PCSO funds, Representative Castelo.
Games.
House Bill 2947, 2948, and 2974 to 2976, establishing and separating and converting high schools into national high schools, Representative Uy, Juliet, and Yu.
Belmonte. Committee on Basic Ed and Culture.
House Bill 2949, providing for the mandatory installation of dashboard cameras, Representative Sampar.
Public Order.
House Bill 2950, ensuring access to secondary education, Representative Santos Recto.
Basic Education.
House Bill 2951, providing medical scholarships, Representative Santos Recto.
Higher and Technical Ed.
House Bill 2952, establishing LGBT health and protection desks, Representative Santos Recto.
Public Order.
House Bill 2953, prohibiting the detention and or mandating the immediate release of cadavers of Muslims from government hospitals, Representative Papandayan.
Muslim Affairs.
House Bill 2954, establishing at least one special education center for each school division, Representative Acharon.
Basic Ed.
House Bill 2955, granting retirement, health care, and death benefits to professional Filipino athletes, Representative Acharon.
Youth and Sports.
House Bill 2956, strengthening Republic Act 8187, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Labor.
House Bill 2957, providing for the establishment of a Timbangan ng Bayan Center, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Trade.
House Bill 2958, creating an amusement park safety board, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Games.
House Bill 2959, providing for the compulsory disclosure of fire safety standards, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Basic Ed.
House Bill 2960, allocating 5% of annual VAT collections to finance agriculture expenditures, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 2961, granting additional insurance benefits to all public school teachers, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Basic Ed.
House Bill 2962, regulating the aquarium aquatic life collecting industry, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Aquaculture.
House Bill 2963, establishing an intergovernmental task force, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Tourism.
House Bill 2964, prohibiting the disposal of electronic equipment, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Colleging.
House Bill 2965, expanding the coverage of incentives extended to national athletes, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Youth and Sports.
House Bill 2966, providing for the research, development, education, and technology transfer, Representative Macapagal Arroyo.
Science and Technology.
House Bill 2967, establishing a hospital for teachers at Macapagal Arroyo.
Health.
House Bill 2969, establishing coastal climate change adaptation programs at Ermita Buhain.
Climate Change.
House Bill 2970, extending the validity of the regular Philippine passport at Ermita Buhain.
Foreign Affairs.
House Bill 2971, establishing a youth development and training center.
Youth and Sports.
House Bill 2972, providing for the establishment of TESA Training and Accreditation Center.
Higher Technical Ed.
House Bill 2973, establishing a Research and Development Center.
Health.
House Bill 2977, providing for a comprehensive nuclear regulatory framework.
Government Reorg.
House Bill 2978, establishing the Masbate Institute of Fisheries and Technologies at Bravo.
Higher Technical Ed.
House Bill 2991, providing for the monthly honorarium for barangay officials at
Local
Espino.
Government.
House Bill 2982, providing for a charter Philippine Public Safety College at Espino.
Higher and Technical Ed.
House Bill 2983, creating bike lanes at Antonio.
Transportation.
House Bill 2984, granting scholarships for children at Antonio.
Basic Ed.
House Bill 2985, providing for the establishment of drug rehabilitation.
Dangerous Drugs.
House Bill 2996, establishing Agusan Marsh.
Natural
Liliana.
Resources.
House Bill 2997, providing for the conversion of a vehicle sanitarium sa Andaya.
Health.
House Bill 2988, providing for security of tenure sa Andaya.
Civil Service.
House Bill 2989, providing protection to the elderly sa Gatchalian.
Population.
House Bill 2990, establishing the Philippine Basic Education Nutrition sa
Basic
Gatchalian.
Ed.
House Bill 2991, declaring November 28 sa Bacquiao.
Revision of Laws.
House Bill 2992, establishing an oath of office.
Overseas Workers Affairs.
House Bill 2993, amending Republic Act 6975
Public
sa
Order and
Batangas.
Safety.
House Bill 2994, amending Section 461,
Local
Paragraph B.
government.
House Bill 2995, providing for the direct remittance of
Local
PCHI.
government.
House Bill 2996, mandating 4-day work week.
Civil Service and Professional Regulation and the Committee on Labor.
House Bill 2997, imposing severe penalties for taxi drivers. and
Public
Costello.
order.
House Bill 2998, protecting passengers. of
Transportation.
duties. House Bill 2999, mandating owners and operators of flight passenger service.
Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 3000, providing for the resettlements of Costello.
Housing.
House Bill 3001, authorizing all MMDA operatives of Costello.
Metro Manila Development.
House Bill 3002, institutionalizing awareness of Costello.
Banks.
House Bill 3003, disallowing hospital bills of Costello.
Health.
House Bill 3005, mandating the Bureau of Immigration of Costello.
Justice.
House Bill 3006, requiring every major establishment of Costello.
Public order and safety.
House Bill 3007, promoting the reduction of poverty of Costello.
Small business enterprise.
House Bill 3008, establishing the Office of Environment of Costello.
Natural resources.
House Bill 3009, institutionalizing mandatory establishments of Batkes.
Local government.
House Bill 3010, granting amnesties of Kimbo.
Can you repeat that? Slowly.
House Bill 3010, granting amnesty in estate tax, Representative Kimbo.
Who's the author?
Representative Kimbo.
To the Committee on Ways and Means. I
House
just
Bill
wanted
30
it to be clear. Huh? Go ahead.
House Bill 3011, establishing an LTO satellite office at Marquez.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 3012, prohibiting government offices at Bagao, several others.
Civil Service.
House Bill 3013, providing agricultural farms at Heron.
Agriculture.
House Bill 3014, abolishing the governance commissions at Nogales, several others.
Government enterprises.
House Bill 3015, amending certain provisions of Public Act 8239 sa Velarde.
Foreign Affairs.
House Bill 3016, restoring Philippine Inventors Commission sa Velarde.
Trade.
House Bill 3017, directed DOH at Roque Hari.
Health.
House Bill 3018, providing for recruiting sa Roque Hari.
Basic Ed.
House Bill 3019, instituting Philippine Pollutant Release sa Roque Hari.
Ecology.
House Bill 3020, requiring DepEd sa Roque Hari.
Basic Ed.
House Bill 3021, providing incentives sa Roque Hari.
Local government.
House Bill 3022, requiring government offices sa Roque Hari.
Public info.
House Bill 3023, ensuring the free exercise by the people sa
Pe-
Roque Hari.
People's participation.
House Bill 3024, requiring government employees sa Roque Hari.
Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Bill 3025, strengthening the practice of electrical engineering sa Babayon.
Civil Service.
House Bill 3026, calling for a constitutional convention sa Velarde at Cienza.
Constitutional amendments.
Resolutions, House Resolution 229, urging the DFA sa Bernos.
Foreign Affairs.
House Resolution 230, urging the National Statistics Office sa Bernos.
Population and Family Relations.
House Resolution 231, commending the awardees of the search for outstanding teachers sa Bikimbo.
Can you repeat that again, please?
House Resolution 231, commending the awardees of the search for outstanding teachers 2016 by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc., Representative Kimbo.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 232, proclaiming the month of September sa Sabeliano.
Committee on Basic Ed.
House Resolution 223, urging the DPWH sa Representative Mercado.
Public Works.
House Resolution 234, urging the Secretary of DOF, sa Garcia.
Local Government.
House Resolution 235, directing the Committee on Welfare of Children, sa Brosas and De Jesus.
Rules.
House Resolution 236, directing the Committees on Health and Women and Gender Equality, sa De Jesus and several others.
Rules.
House Resolution 237, calling telecommunication service providers of Roque Hari.
Rules. Mr. Majority Leader, the next governor of the province of Iloilo, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
I move for suspension.
What?
I move for suspension.
Session is suspended. Partner, I want to say that when I said that you're going to be the next governor, Congressman Garin clapped emphatically. Huh? I cannot say if his brother will give you the same support. Huh? But the better knowing brother is emphatic. Two pass, sorry. Sorry. Belmonte, Erice, you're both late. You have to come on time, ha? Kwan lang, for 3 years lang. Below 3 million. Above 3 million, bayad ka na ng 6%. Pwede na. Tsaka kwan naman, zonal value. So, yung mansion mo sa
Great na yun, yes.
Malibete. Tomasito ba ito?
Kung gusto mo, ikaw muna para sakto kami. Ikaw po.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we move to approve Journal number 13, dated August 22, 2016. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion, hearing no objection. Journal number 13, dated August 22, 2016, is hereby approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we greet some guests in the gallery.
Can I refuse?
The guests in the gallery.
Please proceed.
We have the elected provincial and municipal officials in the province of Sorsogon who are the guests of Representative Evelina Escudero and Representative Deogracias Ramos, both of the 1st and 2nd District of Sorsogon. We have the Vice Governor of Sorsogon, Maria Esther Hamor, the board members Rebecca Aquino, John Ryan Dioneda, Franco Eric Rabanilla, Pedro Rabanilla, Crunimar Escudero II, Arzeg Lipo, Renato Guban, Benedicto Hau, Maria Teresa Fragata, Dennis Alfonso Escudero, and the mayors of the municipalities in Sorsogon, namely Jose Edwin Hamor, Joan Alkende, Caroline C. Reyes, Augusto Ragrario, Sharon Rose Escoto, Benito Doma, Helen De Castro, Alfredo Cielo Jr., Manuel Fortes Jr., Antonio Alindogan, Alejandro Gamos, Michael Guisaico, Josephine Alcantara, ex-Mayor Dennis Reyes, and Ramonito Sical.
The guests of the Honorable Congressperson Evelina Escudero and Congressman Deogracias Ramos, please stand up. Welcome to the House of Representatives, to our visitors from the great province of Sorsogon. Magandang hapon po. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we also greet the guests of the Honorable Anthony Bravo of Co-op NATCO Party List, the leaders of Kapandesal Cooperative, namely Mel Tadeo, Mary Ann Gonzalez, Attorney Mahe Bambo, Jason Luna, Jose Ebron.
The guests of the Honorable Congressman Bravo, please stand up. Welcome to the House of Representatives and to the entire cooperative industry and movement. Magandang hapon po. May dalawa bang tinapay? Tinapay daw eh. Sige. Please remember, when you come over, you are not required to bring gifts, but we are free to accept. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we likewise recognize the guests of Honorable Tom Villarin of Akbayan Party List, members of the civil society organizations, namely Nagkakaisang Magsasaka sa Gitnang Luzon, Pambansang Katipunan ng mga Samahan sa Kanayunan, National Anti-Poverty Commission, Pambansang Kaisahan ng Magbubukid ng Pilipinas, Pambansang Katipunan ng Maliliit na Magsasaka, Aniban ng mga manggagawa, magsasaka at mangingisda.
Will the guests of the Honorable Tomasito S. Villarin please stand up? Welcome po. Magandang hapon. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
And may we also greet the guests of
Please proceed, the Majority Leader from Anwaray Party List. Your party list is not showing. Go ahead. You may greet them.
Congressman Noel Villanueva, the Vice Governor of Tarlac, Attorney Carlito Santos David, and the board members Henry Cruz, Boy Mandal, and Vernon Villanueva.
The guests of the best-looking congressman from Tarlac, the Honorable Noel Villanueva, please rise. From in the middle, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader, ano natin sunod?
Mr. Speaker, we move that we hold a privilege hour.
There is a motion to declare a privilege hour. While it is not a Monday, there are some members who wish to deliver privileged speeches. Hearing no objection, the Chair declares a privilege hour. Majority Leader.
And the first to speak, Mr. Speaker, and to avail of the privilege hour is the Honorable Representative Tomasito Villarin of Party List Akbayan. May we move to recognize him, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Tomasito S. Villarin from Party List Akbayan and from the great city of Davao is recognized to deliver his privileged speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues in this August chamber, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I rise on a personal and collective privilege to tackle a historical conflict rooted on social justice and human rights. Fighting inequality is a core objective that our government must address if we want to move on and achieve our desired goal of peace and sustainable development. And to me, agrarian reform and other social justice issues are the bread and butter of this hallowed institution. Mr. Speaker, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte made an emphatic commitment to agrarian reform when he nominated no less than a former esteemed member of the House and a genuine peasant leader, Secretary Rafael Capaeng Mariano. His stewardship of the DAR will mean that finally our farmers will have a true champion leading real change in government. For that, our fervent wishes for his success, and may the struggle for genuine agrarian reform be finally resolved under his watch. This year marks the 28th year after Congress passed a historic comprehensive agrarian reform law in 1988. The law is pursuant to a constitutional mandate, Article 2, Section 21 of the 1987 Constitution. The state shall promote comprehensive rural development and agrarian reform. This is also in consonance with Article 12, Section 1 on national economy and patrimony that promotes a more equitable distribution of opportunities, income, and wealth, targeting especially the underprivileged through sound agricultural development and agrarian reform. And finally, a separate constitutional mandate, Article 13 on agrarian reform and natural resources reform, providing the framework by which agricultural lands, both private and public, are to be redistributed to farmers and farm workers actually tilling on the land, subject to retention limits to be provided for by Congress, and the right of landowners to just compensation. It should be remembered that prior to the CARP and the 1987 Constitution, land reform was already attempted, but the contentious issue of what lands are covered and form of ownership by farmer beneficiaries were not addressed. Under CARP, there are two main beneficiaries. One, farmers actually tilling the land, and second, regular farm workers. The general strategy is that the state expropriates or takes away the land subject to due process and just compensation. All private agricultural lands are covered, but several lands were later exempted through judicial legislation. Also, landowners are allowed to retain 3 hectares of their lands. Landowners who have tenant farmers who till lands under retention limits are afforded tenurial security through leasehold agreement or contract that provides for a 75-25 sharing agreement in favor of the tenants. For public, alienable, and disposable lands, this could be distributed to actual tillers and settlers, subject to prior rights, homestead rights, and the rights of indigenous peoples within their ancestral lands. For other types of public lands, the tenurial instrument afforded to the landless farmers occupying them would be through stewardship. For indigenous peoples, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act provide for the recognition and titling of ancestral lands under the principle of their ownership of said lands since time immemorial. Mr. Speaker, for CARP to be effective, it has to be, first, targeted, second, it should be time-bound, and third, sufficient funds are to be allocated for land acquisition and distribution and for the needed support services. For it to be targeted, the Department of Agrarian Reform should make an inventory of all lands, estates, plantations, and other land holdings. For it to be time-bound, the state shall fix a timetable for land acquisition and distribution. And third, the necessary funds for just compensation of landowners should be afforded. Under CARP, the first 10-year of project implementation ended in 1998. For CARP to be meaningful, the farmer beneficiaries should be empowered and would have improved their income and productivity. This necessitates state intervention in the form of timely and relevant support services, in the form of infrastructure, credit, market access and support, capacity building, and other means for farmer beneficiaries to increase their productivity. Mr. Speaker, let me make a brief narrative of CARP under several administrations since its passage in June 10, 1988. Under President Cory Aquino, the implementation of CARP was highly contentious as landowner resistance was high and continues to be so even up to this day. Evasion of the spirit and intent of agrarian reform started when modes other than direct land transfer, like the stock distribution option in the Hacienda Luisita case. Agricultural plantations were given a 10-year deferment period for them to be covered. Later, they were under the so-called leaseback arrangements wherein farm workers would lease back the lands distributed to them to the corporations that run the plantations. The policies on agrarian reform under the Ramos administration focused on accelerating the direct land transfer and non-land transfer by prioritizing public agricultural lands for coverage and the segmentation of private agricultural lands by sizes of land holdings. Thus, under President Ramos, lands more than 50 hectares were covered first, and the rest of the land holdings, being the most numerous, would be last. This is why the backlog in the coverage of private agricultural lands was still high when the first 10-year period of CARP lapsed in 1998. Thus, the law was amended, particularly Section 63, to increase the fund of this project to 100 billion pesos. The fund received a boost when the money forfeited from the Marcoses' ill-gotten wealth was recovered by the PCGG. Under the Estrada administration, another land redistribution scheme was implemented called the corporative arrangement. This mode supposedly would fast-track land acquisition and distribution by making farmers and landowners enter into joint ventures, contract farming, and other marketing arrangements. Under President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the second 10-year period lapsed, with government still facing a backlog in land redistribution. Republic Act 9700, or the CARP extension with reforms, or CARPER, was passed with a new deadline for redistributing the remaining 1.2 million hectares of plantations and private agricultural lands until June 30, 2014. The new law also amended several provisions of RA 6657, instituting reforms to accelerate the implementation of CARP. A Congressional Oversight Committee on Agrarian Reform was established to oversee and monitor its implementation, and another 150 billion was appropriated for its implementation. However, as of February 2014, the DAR reported to the Oversight Committee that some 790,671 hectares of carpable lands remain to be covered, with another 283,473 hectares without notices of coverage. These lands are mostly large land holdings under compulsory acquisition. With the lapse of RA 9700 in doing mandatory coverage in 2014, the program of distributing lands to farmer beneficiaries is in limbo. It is the opinion of this manifestation that CARP coverage has to continue even after June 2014, as the CARPER law states that cases on the matter which are still pending shall be allowed to proceed to its finality and be executed beyond such date. Mr. Speaker, under the present Duterte administration, there are major challenges for agrarian reform. Last June 10, 2016, major agrarian reform groups and networks, including social action centers of dioceses, convened to discuss these challenges. This representation was able to discuss with them their various concerns and issues. Thus, we have with us these farmer beneficiaries and networks to lobby Congress to pass an extension of the CARPER beyond the 2014 deadline. Among the following major concerns, I listed at least 10 highlights of their concerns, Mr. Speaker. First, the need for a continuous rationalization and evaluation of the DAR bureaucracy, from the national down to the municipal levels, enforcing sanctions and penalties to inefficient or corrupt officials or employees in accordance with law. Second, there is the need to amend or repeal controversial anti-farmer policies instituted by DAR upon intra-agency evaluation and consultation with affected farmers, and the institutionalization of regular dialogues and consultations. Third, and I think this is most important, Mr. Speaker, is the need to make the Presidential Agrarian Reform Council, or PARC, headed by no less than the President, to take charge of all highly contentious and controversial agrarian reform cases. Instead of taking a circuitous route from the PARAD, from the RARAD, and the DARAB, these cases be brought to the park or to the office of the President for immediate disposition. This will provide farmers the right to a speedy administration and resolution of their cases. Fourth, the need to create a special task force by Secretary Paeng Mariano to handle the evaluation of CLOAS, the installation of uninstalled beneficiaries, to investigate illegal land conversion cases, and undertake a financial audit of CART. There are also reports of human rights violations against farmers, some in the Bondok Peninsula and others in the Visayas that has to be investigated, Mr. Speaker. Fifth, there is a need to expedite the rules on beneficiary installation, highlighting penalties for non-compliance, putting precautionary signages for would-be violators. The general rule, Mr. Speaker, should be established that when a CLOA or a certificate land ownership award is already issued to farmers, the farmers already have the right to possess and enter into their lands without the need for a writ of installation. And on that matter, the DAR and PNP shall provide assistance and support to the farmer beneficiaries in all installation processes. Sixth, the need to facilitate resolution of conflicting claims of beneficiaries under the jurisdiction of DAR, DNR, NCIP for indigenous peoples with regards to public lands and ancestral lands, and to fast-track the issuance of tenurial instruments to secure the rights of farmer tillers and occupants without degrading the rights of IPs to their ancestral lands. This concern is more focused, Mr. Speaker, in Mindanao. Seventh, the need to review second-generation problems of land tenure improvement with regards to continuing beneficiary issues related to ownership, on amortization payments to the land bank, and improving productivity of carped lands. Number 8, the need to pass a National Land Use Act that will rationalize the use of a scarce resource, that is, agricultural lands, to primarily address food security and rural development over other non-agricultural priorities. This will likewise resolve issues over powers of land reclassification of LGUs and the conversion powers solely reserved to DAR. Ninth, the need to formulate policies that will protect our farmers on the impact of free trade agreements, liberalization of agriculture, subsidies and spikes in prices of food commodities, and climate change to make our farmers climate resilient and to mitigate their vulnerabilities. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, there is a need to strengthen farmer beneficiary organizations through continuous trainings on self-organizing, productivity improvement, organic agriculture, paralegalism, conflict resolution through legal empowerment, and engagement with government over entitlements and support service delivery. I hope, Mr. Speaker, colleagues and advocates, that the full implementation of CARPER after almost 30 years and the avowed objectives of fighting inequality and defending the democratic gains of people power will finally be achieved. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, under this present dispensation, the political will to finish CARPER shall be done under the presidency of President Duterte. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize the Honorable Ed Selagman for his interpellation.
The Honorable Ed Selagman is recognized to make his interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the distinguished gentleman from Party List Akbayan yield to some questions?
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker.
The CARP, or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, is not only a statutory program. It is pursuant to a constitutional mandate. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. It is a constitutional mandate with even at least 3 constitutional provisions mandating its implementation, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
The CARP has at least 3 components. 1, the LAD, or Land Acquisition and Distribution component, agrarian justice, and the third is support services. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Speaker. And if I may add, Mr. Speaker, there's a 4th component, the land tenure improvement, which also focus on non-redistribution aspect, meaning the tenancy arrangements for farmer beneficiaries.
And the CARP is a continuing program. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that being a constitutional mandate, unless this program is not yet finished, it is a mandatory upon the state to continue its implementation, Mr. Speaker.
Support services is continuing. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. In fact, even the budget for agrarian reform and 14 other agencies tasked for the implementation of CARP should have been integrated into a holistic program for support services delivery, Your Honor.
Similarly, agrarian justice is a continuing concern and program of the state. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Yes, again, that's correct, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. In fact, agrarian justice is also human rights, and in promoting human rights and the focus and the mandate of the state for the underprivileged should be a priority concern as a social justice measure program, Your Honor.
And land or land acquisition and distribution is likewise a continuing program of the government pursuant to the Constitution.
Again, that is right, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. It is a continuing mandate regardless of the timetable or the period mentioned in RA 9700, which states that an extension of 5 years since 2009 was to be made, and now it is 2016. So even if the directory, I think, and I manifest, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, that the 5-year period is just a directory period, meaning it's not mandatory, and that the state shall see to it that the full completion of land acquisition and distribution should be made, Your Honor.
Since the components of CARP constitute continuing programs, they are not time-bound. Is that correct, Your Honor?
I think that's correct, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker. The 10-year period and another 10-year period for extension refers to mostly the appropriation of additional funds for land acquisition and distribution and for the full implementation of agrarian reform.
The position that the CARP is a continuing program, including its components, among others, land acquisition and distribution, is supported by the very spirit and language of Section 4 of Article 13 of the Constitution, which is the heart of agrarian reform. Let me read, Your Honor, Section 4. It says, "The state shall by law undertake an agrarian reform program founded on the right of farmers and regular farm workers who are landless to own directly or collectively the lands they till, or in the case of other farm workers, to receive a just share of the fruits thereof. In other words, distinguished gentlemen, as long as there are farmers who are beneficiaries, and as long as there are lands, agricultural lands to be distributed, land or land acquisition and distribution has no terminal date. Is that correct, Your Honor?
I think that's correct, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, in the context that when DAR was mandated to identify the lands that would be covered under CARP, until their last count, there's still almost 1 million hectares of private agricultural lands that remain to be covered. Some already issued with notices of coverage, while some still has to be issued notices of coverage. So that would still form part of the targeted mandate for DAR to finish, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
Let me continue with Section 4, Your Honor. The Constitution reads, "To this end, the states shall encourage and undertake the just distribution of all agricultural lands." Let me underscore, all agricultural lands, subject to such priorities and reasonable retention limits as the Congress may prescribe, taking into account ecological, developmental, or equity considerations, and subject to the payment of just compensation. So, in this particular provision, the Constitution says all agricultural lands. And as long as there are still agricultural lands to be covered, the program on land acquisition and distribution must perforce continue. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, in terms of the coverage of agricultural lands, the law also mandates that even lands, public agricultural lands, shall be covered. And we still have, in fact, to determine the number of hectares wherein there are conflicting claims over public agricultural lands in relation with other asset reform and tenurial arrangements in public lands, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
The Constitution grants the Congress to pass legislation authorizing the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program pursuant to Section 4, and there are only 4 conditions imposed by the Constitution on that law. One is Congress can prescribe priorities. Number 2, Congress can impose reasonable retention limits. Number 3, Congress, due to considerations of equity, developmental, ecological aspects, could also prescribe certain limitations or conditions. And the last is that there should be payment of just compensation. Nowhere in this Section 4 is there a provision which says that Congress can impose time limits or make the components of CARP subject to time or period limitations. In other words, when Congress passed the CARL and subsequently made extensions, the purpose there was to extend the funding support from government, but it did not include putting terminals to the distribution, to the acquisition and distribution of all covered agricultural lands. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Yes, that is right, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, under RA 9700, Congress established an oversight committee on agrarian reform to see to it that the extension with reforms should be implemented by now, Mr. Speaker.
In other words, Congress may not even enact a law to extend the land acquisition and distribution component. But Congress is not prohibited from making such extensions with respect to granting continuing funding support for land or the land acquisition and distribution component of agrarian reform, together with the other components like agrarian justice and support services. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Again, I think that is correct, Your Honor, coming from no less than one of the authors of our Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, Honorable Edsel Lagman. And under this manifestation, Your Honor, as I've mentioned earlier, this manifestation is also of the contention of the idea that agrarian reform, until it is finished, is a continuing mandate of the state, and that Congress shall by law make policies and provide funds for its full implementation, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Your Honor, for those candid answers. And thank you for giving this representation the opportunity to make some questions relevant to your privilege speech. Maraming salamat.
Thank you to Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker.
May we
Majority
know what
Leader.
is the pleasure of the gentleman, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the congressman from...
Yes, with the consent of the distinguished Majority Leader, may I ask if the gentleman from the Akbayan Party would be willing to be interpolated on the subject of his privileged speech?
Before you reply, allow me to recognize first our former Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Raul Daza of the 1st District of Northern Samar. There is a question propounded. Is Congressman Villarin amenable to
Yes,
the
Mr.
interpellation?
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very amenable to an interpellation from the esteemed colleague, Honorable Raul
You may
Daza.
proceed, Congressman Daza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by congratulating the gentleman for standing on the floor and bringing to the attention of the House a subject matter that is not only timely but essential to the attainment of the goals of the CARP law. Well, I would like to congratulate him for this, and I consider it a privilege to be able to interpellate him because I was a member of the 7th Congress that enacted the CARP law 29 years ago. What I find most striking in the 10 concerns that he mentioned to the House is the need to create a special task force by Secretary Mariano to handle evaluation of CLOAS and human rights violations of farmers. In relation to this concern, I share the sentiment of the distinguished gentleman in that, in my humble opinion, one of the best appointments made by President Duterte is the appointment of Kapay Mariano to be Secretary of Agrarian Reform. Because I cannot, in my mind, think of a better champion for the farmers when we talk of agrarian reform. Now, I am struck by the concern of the gentleman on human rights violations against farmers. Is the gentleman aware of a particular case of which I have personal knowledge, that a certain congressman, whom I would rather name now, while still a member of the House, manipulated that certain clause that had been issued by the Department of Agrarian Reform in accordance with proper procedures got cancelled, and then without giving due process to the CLOA beneficiaries, the old title was restored, and the CLOAs were cancelled. Now, I had personal knowledge of this because the victimized farmers came to me. I brought the matter to the attention of the Department of Agrarian Reform in the last administration, and it was to me shocking to be told that the matter could not no longer be handled by the department, so that we were told, the victims were told, to go to an ordinary court of justice in order to litigate the ownership of the lands that had been covered by the CLOAs. What is worse is that one of the beneficiary farmers, in the sincere belief that he had become owner of the land because of the CLOA, harvested coconuts from the parcel of land. Mr. Speaker, he was arrested, a case of qualified theft was filed against him, and as of today, and that is 5 years hence, the farmer is still languishing in jail because the trial has not been terminated, and as we know, qualified theft is one of the cases in which the accused is not entitled to bail. Does the gentleman agree with me that there probably are many more cases of this kind where human rights violations have been committed on the farmer beneficiaries, that as soon as time permits, that Secretary Mariano form the special task force recommended by the gentleman? Does he agree?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, I agree with you. In fact, one of the most grievous human rights violations for farmers is that even CLOA holders, meaning the Certificate of Land Ownership Award, already given to farmers, but CLOA holders are not even recognized and not allowed to enter and possess the lands already awarded to them by the state. And also, in fact, Mr. Speaker, there are a number of harassment cases against farmers in which these cases, instead of bringing this up to the agrarian courts, they bring this up to the regular trial courts, which should have no jurisdiction over agrarian reform cases. And likewise, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, this representation also has with him copies of issues of non-installation of beneficiaries, which I will submit to this August House, so that when the request for Secretary Paeng Mariano to constitute a special task force, these issues of uninstalled beneficiaries should be made a priority under his watch, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I hope that the gentleman who I believe is a friend of Secretary Mariano make immediate representation with the Secretary. I'm willing to join him to create this special task force that he recommends. Because as I said, the human rights violations inflicted on the beneficiary farmers probably is a commonplace occurrence in our country. And to me, this is tragic because, as stated by President Duterte and as stated by previous presidents before the incumbent one, agrarian reform should be one of the pillars of the national government in order that the poor can be alleviated from their dire condition. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman from Bakbayan Party for being generous in hosting me and according me this privilege to interpellate him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Your Honor.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the gentleman to the Committee on Rules.
Is there an objection? Hearing none, the privilege speech is referred to the Committee on Rules.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we terminate the privilege hour.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the privilege hour is terminated.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, may we recognize the guests of Honorable Alex Advincula, Francis Gerald Abaya, John Ferrer, and Abraham Tolentino. They are constituents from the province of Cavite and also from London, the United Kingdom. They are Mrs. Nerissa Advincula, Mr. Joey and Mrs. Annie Solis, Mr. Gary and Mrs. Mary Ann Poon, Mr. Arthur and Mrs. Emilita Ordonez, and Mr. Roberto Bautista, Miss Juliet Bautista, Mr. Nilo Espiritu, and Mrs. Munina Ferrer.
Will the guests of the most loving husbands of the province of Cavite please rise? Welcome to the House of Representatives. We are truly honored to have you here, especially from our very wife-loving representatives of the province of Cavite. Before you proceed, Majority Leader, allow me to recognize the most distinguished Majority Leader in the history of this Republic, the Honorable Neptali M. Gonzalez II, who is in no way here because his spouse is here. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up additional reference of business and kindly direct the Secretary General to read the title of this resolution.
The Secretary General is so directed.
Additional reference of business resolution, House Resolution number 261, resolution congratulating and commending head coach Alfonsito Aldanete, team manager and chairman of the technical committee for training Mr. Albert C. Atilano, Sr. and other coaches and trainers of our Filipino Olympian silver medalist, Ms. Heidelin Diaz, Representative Sambar, Nograles, and Nograles.
Can you repeat the authors?
Representative Sambar, Jericho Nograles, and Carlo Nograles.
Committee on Rules.
Mr. Speaker, I move
Yes,
that,
Majority Leader.
I move that we consider this resolution number 261 and kindly direct the Secretary General to read again the title of this resolution.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the aforementioned resolution.
House Resolution 261. Resolution congratulating and commending Head Coach Alfonsito Aldanete, Team Manager and Chairman of the Technical Committee for Training, Mr. Albert C. Atilano Sr. and other coaches and trainers of our Filipino Olympian silver medalist, Ms. Heidelin Diaz.
Is there any objection?
No, Mr. Speaker, I move that we, before we proceed, move for the adoption of House Resolution number 261.
There is a motion for the adoption. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, before we part ways, I move that we adopt the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation of the 16th Congress as the provisional rules to govern our inquiries in aid of legislation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion. Hearing no objection, the motion is hereby approved.
Likewise, Mr. Speaker, I move that we adopt the rules of procedure in impeachment proceedings of the 16th Congress as the provisional rules to govern our impeachment proceedings. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion. Hearing no objection, the motion is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we adjourn session until tomorrow, 24 August.
Can we suspend
4
session
o'clock.
for a few minutes? Session suspended. Session is resumed.
Mr. Speaker.
May we know what is the pleasure of the gentleman, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, the honorable representative from party list Buhay, the honorable Lito Atienza, is recognized.
Thank you, sir.
Our senior deputy minority leader.
Thank you, sir. I heard the motion of adjournment. So, what is the decision of the body? The chair. The majority floor leader moved for adjournment, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, but the majority leader withdrew the motion. So the majority leader is about to reiterate that motion.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Upon resumption, I would like to reiterate my motion that we adjourn session.
No, but let us dispense first with the query of the senior deputy minority leader. Have I made myself clear already?
Well, you made it very clear, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
That the gentleman, the majority floor leader, has already reiterated his motion to adjourn.
Yes. There is a motion, being a privileged motion. Hearing no objection, the session is adjourned until tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. Don't be late.